What do you mean we're losing regular customers at the downtown bakery? Leonard Graves leaned forward in his office chair, eyeing the spreadsheet his assistant had just handed him. There've been complaints, she said carefully, but it's always vague, just a bad vibe. Nothing specific, Leonard frowned. That's our busiest location. It pulls in more than half of our walk-in revenue. He inherited the bakery chain from his father 5 years ago, 10 locations spread across the city, known for fresh bread and honest service. He'd spent the first few years updating operations and expanding, but lately he'd been buried in board meetings and supply chain issues. He hadn't stepped foot in a customer-facing store in almost a year. "I'm going in," he said suddenly. His assistant blinked. "Sir, I want to know why that location feels off. I'll go in as a new trainee. I'll spend a few days working the morning shift," she hesitated. "They won't recognize you," Leonard shook his head. "I've never met most of the floor staff in person, especially not since the last turnover. And if I wear a beard, lose the suit, and change my voice a bit." He grinned. "They'll never know." 3 days later, he walked through the back door of the downtown bakery at 5:30 a.m., dressed in cargo pants, a faded hoodie, beard, and glasses on. He introduced himself as Leo, a new trainee sent in last minute by corporate to help with a recent staffing gap. The bakery manager, a tired-looking woman named Carla, barely looked at him. "We're short 2 people today. Don't fall behind." Leonard nodded and tied on an apron. By 6:15, the kitchen was alive. The smell of rising dough filled the air and the counter staff buzzed while prepping the day's display. Leonard kept his head down and followed instructions. Then the head baker walked in. "Move," barked a tall man with a deep voice, pushing past Leonard to slap a tray of croissants onto the prep table. "God, who trained you to stack like that? It's a mess." Leonard stepped aside. "Sorry, you're just slow." "Don't slow us down." Leonard glanced at Carla, but she didn't say a word. He kept his mouth shut for now. By 8:30, the store was open and customers had started to trickle in. Leonard was working the espresso machine when a young girl barely 20 dropped a tray of muffins while trying to restock the front display. The crash echoed across the room. The head baker stormed out from the back. "Are you serious, Olivia? That's your 3rd mess this week." I'm sorry," she stammered, kneeling to pick them up. "I just tripped. I didn't mean in front of customers." "What the hell is wrong with you?" he snapped, voice rising. "You want to embarrass all of us just because you've got butter fingers?" Leonard turned toward the front. A couple customers were watching, awkwardly frozen mid-order. Olivia's hands shook. "I didn't mean to. You never mean to. That's the problem," the baker sneered. "Do us all a favor and quit before you drop the oven next." Leonard stepped forward. "Hey, that's enough," the baker turned. "What?" I said that's enough. She dropped a tray, not a bomb. The baker looked him up and down. "You're the new guy. Maybe learn how things work before you start running your mouth." Leonard held his stare. "I know exactly how things should work." Carla finally stepped out from the back. "Is there a problem?" Leonard kept his voice calm. "We've got customers watching a staff member get humiliated." "That's a problem." Carla's eyes flicked toward the front. A man was walking out, shaking his head. She sighed. "Just everyone back to work." Leonard helped Olivia up and gave her a quiet nod. "Thanks," she whispered, eyes glossy. The head baker muttered under his breath and stormed back to the kitchen. Leonard had seen enough. But he wasn't ready to reveal himself. Not yet. He needed to know how long this had been going on, how deep the rot went, and who else was part of it. Because if this was how they treated new hires in broad daylight, he couldn't imagine what happened when no one was watching. He quietly asked Olivia during the break if she had a minute. She hesitated, then nodded. They sat on 2 milk crates in the back alley behind the store. "Why haven't you said anything?" he asked. She looked at her shoes. "Who would I tell? Carla says it's just his way. He gets stressed." Leonard clenched his jaw. "Is it always like this?" She nodded. "Worse sometimes, especially when it's slow." He looked her in the eye. "I'm sorry." "No one should talk to you like that." Her voice cracked. "It's my first real job." Leonard stood and walked back inside with a pit in his stomach. He'd just seen his company through her eyes and he didn't like what he saw. By the end of the second shift, Leonard had cataloged more dysfunction than he expected in a single day. But it wasn't just the head baker's aggression or Carla's passivity that stood out. It was the atmosphere, the way every employee moved like they were waiting to be scolded. The bakery was still turning a profit, but the cost was clear in every nervous glance and silent shrug. The next morning, Leonard arrived just after 5. The air outside was damp and cold, and the delivery truck was already idling out back. No one was unloading it. He stepped inside and found Carla at the prep table, her hair pulled into a knot, eyes glassy from lack of sleep. "Delivery's been waiting," Leonard said, pulling on gloves. "We're short again," she muttered. "I've got people out sick. I'll get it," he offered. She didn't argue. Leonard hauled in crates of eggs, sacks of flour, and trays of frozen butter while the rest of the staff trickled in. Olivia arrived with a limp in her step and a bandage on her wrist. He didn't ask, she didn't offer. By 6, the head baker, whose name Leonard now knew was Darren, was already shouting over a missing tray of cinnamon rolls. "They were prepped last night. Where the hell are they?" he barked, slamming a fridge door shut. "They were in the second cooler," said a thin man named Rami who had been working the early prep shift. "I checked twice." "Then check again and actually use your eyes this time." Leonard crossed the kitchen. "I unloaded everything this morning. They're not in there." Darren turned. "Don't start. You've been here 2 days and already think you know how this place runs. I'm just telling you what I saw. And I'm telling you to shut it and do your damn job." Rami flinched. Olivia froze at the sink. Leonard stepped forward. "You can't talk to people like that." Darren laughed without humor. "You want to take over the kitchen, rookie? Be my guest." Carla finally looked up from the register. "Darren, enough." He didn't even look at her. "Go call corporate if you've got a problem. Otherwise, stay out of my kitchen." Leonard held her gaze. She looked away. That afternoon, Leonard was assigned to shadow Rami on prep duty. They worked in silence for a while, chopping fruit and laying out tart shells. "You always this quiet?" Leonard asked. Rami gave a small shrug. "Just trying to stay out of trouble." "That how it works here?" "Not officially." Leonard sliced through a kiwi. "You ever think about quitting?" Rami let the question hang. "I need the hours." "My rent just went up." "Still," Leonard said, "seems like a rough place to ride it out." Rami glanced toward the kitchen door. "You speak up, your hours get cut. That's what happened to Jess." "Jess?" She used to run the register. Called out Darren once. Next week, she was down to Sundays only. "Quit a month later." Leonard kept his face neutral. "Carla let that happen." She says her hands are tied. Says complaints don't go anywhere. That night, Leonard sat in his car outside the bakery for nearly an hour. The lights inside dimmed, the last of the staff gone. He thought of his father's rule: if you protect your margins but lose your people, you're not building a business. You're hollowing one out. The next morning was worse. By 6:30, a customer had already walked out over a wrong order. Olivia had mixed up a name on 2 drink cups and Darren had caught it. "You want to cost us sales now?" he snapped, loud enough for the customer to hear. "I can fix it," she began. "You can't fix stupid." Leonard turned before he could stop himself. "That's it." Darren raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me, you're done. Get out of the kitchen." Darren let out a short laugh. "You don't get to tell me anything." Leonard took a breath and pulled off his cap, then the glasses. Then the beard. Carla, who had been watching from the register, dropped the invoice she was holding. Rami stepped back from the prep table. "I'm Leonard Graves," he said. "Founder, owner, and until 5 minutes ago your boss." Darren blinked. "This some kind of joke?" Leonard stepped closer. "You've verbally abused your team, humiliated staff in front of customers, and created an environment where people are too scared to speak up. You think that's leadership?" "Look," Darren said, his voice suddenly lower, "it gets busy, I get loud, that's all it is." Leonard didn't move. "You were warned by more than one employee. You retaliated. You've burned through good people. It's over. You're fired. Effective immediately." Carla opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Darren scoffed. You'll regret that. I've kept this place running. No, Leonard said, you've kept it afraid. Darren stormed out without another word. The silence that followed was thick. Carla took a step forward. I didn't know it was this serious. Leonard turned to her. You did. You just didn't want to deal with it. I tried to manage it. We're understaffed. And you let that be an excuse for letting him tear people down. You're not just responsible for the register. You're responsible for the people standing behind it. She looked at the floor. I'm not firing you, Leonard said, but I'm pulling you from this location. You're on leave effective immediately. HR will contact you with next steps. She nodded, stunned, and walked to the back without argument. Olivia stood behind the espresso machine, eyes wide. Leonard looked at her. You okay? She nodded slowly. I didn't expect that. No one should have had to wait this long for it. Rami stepped forward. What happens now? Leonard looked at the team. Now we reset. I'll be here all week. We're going to run this place right, with respect, with decency. And without fear. No one clapped. No one cheered. But something eased in the room, a tightness that had lived in every corner of the bakery for too long. By noon, Leonard was behind the register, sleeves rolled, helping Olivia manage the rush. Rami called orders with steady confidence. The air felt different, lighter. Not fixed but cracking open. That night he stayed late to debrief with the remaining team. They sat on overturned crates in the kitchen, sipping leftover coffee. This place used to be my favorite shift, Olivia said quietly. Before Darren, Leonard nodded. We'll get it back there, but I need your help. I'm not going back to the office until we do. And he meant it. Because he hadn't just seen a broken store, he'd seen the cost of distance. Of letting reports replace reality. Tomorrow he'd call HR. The day after, he'd start interviewing for a new on-site manager. But tonight, he swept the floor with the rest of them. Not as the boss. Not yet. Just a man trying to prove his name still meant something. By the following morning, word had spread. Leonard didn't say anything when he arrived, just put on his apron and got to work. The air was cautious but not tense. There was still a long road ahead, but something had shifted. For the first time, no one was waiting to be shouted at before the ovens even finished preheating. The team was short again. Carla hadn't been replaced yet, and Darren's absence left a gap in the baking schedule. Leonard knew the rhythm of the store would falter, but today wasn't about perfection. It was about proving that things could function without fear. He spent the first hour helping Olivia set up the drink station and organizing the new deliveries himself. Rami came in early again, unasked, and the two of them managed to get the pastries prepped and in the display by opening time. At 10, while restocking the back shelf, Leonard heard a voice he didn't recognize. "Where's the manager?" He stepped into the front and saw a man in his early 30s standing just inside the doorway, arms crossed, wearing a black company-branded jacket. His eyes scanned the bakery, unimpressed. Leonard walked up. "Can I help you?" The man tilted his head. "You're the one who fired Darren?" Leonard gave a slow nod. "Yes, I'm Nick. I'm the district training coordinator." He looked around, then lowered his voice. "You made a lot of noise without checking in." Leonard kept his tone level. "You're welcome to grab a coffee and take a seat. I'll join you in 5. Nick didn't move. "I wasn't asking for a meeting." Leonard stepped slightly closer. "And I'm not asking for your permission." Nick blinked, then reluctantly walked to a corner table. Leonard finished his current task, then joined him with 2 cups of coffee, placing one in front of Nick without asking. Nick didn't touch it. "Look, I get it. You're the top guy. But there's a chain of command for a reason. There's also a responsibility to act when people are being mistreated." Nick opened a small notebook. "We're short-staffed across 3 districts. Darren was one of the few experienced bakers we had left. Replacing him won't be easy." Leonard leaned back in the chair. "That's not my concern right now. My concern is this store, these people." Nick tapped his pen. "Did you document the incident? Get statements?" Leonard didn't answer right away. "I lived it." "That's enough for me." Nick closed the notebook. "I'm going to need to file this with corporate." "You do that," Leonard said, And while you're at it, send me the training reports from the last 6 months. I want to see who signed off on Darren's leadership." Nick hesitated. "You sure you want to go down that road?" Leonard stood, already on it. As he walked away, he caught Olivia watching from the register. He gave a small nod, and she returned it, tentative but steadier than the day before. By noon, the Saturday rush began. Leonard rotated between the kitchen and front, filling gaps, checking in with each team member quietly. He never hovered, never gave orders, just asked what they needed and listened when they answered. Around one, a new face arrived, late teens, awkward posture, holding a folded piece of paper. "Hi. I'm here for a trial shift," she said, eyes darting around. Leonard stepped forward. "Name, Jules." He took the paper, a printed email confirming a trial hire approved by Carla the week before. She looked nervous but not unprepared. Her uniform was clean, her sleeves rolled up, her shoes the right kind for kitchen work. She held her bag with both hands like an anchor. "First job?" Leonard asked. She nodded. "All right. You'll shadow Rami on prep. He'll walk you through safety. You're not expected to know anything yet, but ask questions. We don't guess, we ask." Her shoulders relaxed a little. "Okay." Leonard led her to the back and introduced her to Rami, who gave her a quick nod and handed her gloves. Leonard watched for a moment, then returned to the front. By 3, the pace slowed. Leonard leaned on the counter, sipping water, when he heard a sharp metal clang from the kitchen, followed by silence. He moved quickly. Inside, Jules stood frozen, a mixing bowl upside down on the floor, batter splattered across the tiles. Rami stood nearby, holding a towel. "Sorry," Jules whispered. "I was trying to lift it off the counter." "It's okay," Rami said. "We'll clean it up." Leonard crouched beside her. "You hurt?" She shook her head. "Then it's just a mess. Messes get cleaned, that's all." She nodded, still pale. Leonard grabbed a mop and handed it to her. "Team rule number 1, you drop it, you clean it, but nobody makes you feel bad about it." She gave a small, grateful smile. Rami handed her a clean towel. "Happens to everyone." Leonard stepped back and let them work. He returned to the front where Olivia was wiping down the espresso machine. "She's doing okay?" he asked. Olivia nodded. "Better than I did my first day," Leonard smiled. "You've come a long way." She paused. "Did you know Darren used to say things about her?" Before she even started, Leonard turned. "What do you mean?" He said if they sent another girl who looked lost, he'd have her running deliveries just to get her out of sight. Leonard's face hardened. "Did he actually do that?" "Not with me," Olivia said, "but I saw him send 2 girls out with flyers in the rain last month. They didn't come back." Leonard didn't speak. He walked to the back office, pulled the personnel files, and opened Darren's folder. Inside were printed emails, some from Carla, others from Nick mentioning personality clashes and training adjustments. Nothing direct, nothing actionable, but enough to show they all knew. He picked up his phone and dialed HR. "I need a full audit of all applicant rejections and trial shifts from this location in the last 4 months, he said. "And I want it by the end of the day." The reply was hesitant. "Sir, that may take, then start now." He hung up and returned to the kitchen. Rami was showing Jules how to portion scones with a scoop. She was still quiet but focused. The floor had been cleaned. Leonard waited until she finished the tray. "Jules," he said, "can you come out front for a second?" She followed him nervously. He gestured to the corner table away from customers. "You don't have to worry," he said gently. "This isn't about the spill." She sat carefully. "I want to ask you something," Leonard continued. "When you applied here, did anyone from the store ever interview you in person?" She shook her head. "No, just an email, then a second one confirming the trial date." "Did they ask for a photo?" She hesitated. "Yeah, Carla said it was for the name tag." Leonard's jaw tightened. "Did she say that before or after confirming your trial?" "Right after." He nodded slowly. "That's all for now," he said. "You're doing good work." She smiled, unsure, but stood and returned to the kitchen. Leonard turned and walked straight to the back office. He called Nick again. "Send me the name of every candidate Darren or Carla rejected after seeing photos." I want timestamps and emails, and I want to know if that's a common practice across your other locations. Nick's voice faltered on the other end. It's sometimes used for uniforms. It's being used to screen people. You and I both know that. There was a long pause. I'll get what I can. Leonard hung up. He walked back out past the register and paused at the door. The bakery had always been about two things: good food and honest people. Somewhere along the way, part of that had been sold out in exchange for efficiency and denial. Not anymore. Because if a trial employee could be judged by how lost she looked in a photo, then the problem wasn't just one man. It was the system that protected him, and Leonard was going to tear that system apart, one policy at a time. On Monday morning, Leonard arrived before dawn, unlocking the back entrance himself. The air inside the bakery was still, the lights cold and fluorescent. He turned on the ovens, then reviewed the printed audit sheets sent overnight by HR: names, dates, rejections. 7 applicants over the last 3 months had trial shifts canceled within 48 hours of submitting identification photos. 5 were women. 4 were people of color. All had received vague explanations: schedule conflicts, overstaffing, or no response at all. Leonard set the sheets aside and folded his hands on the prep table. He wasn't looking at an isolated issue anymore. He was looking at a pattern. By 6, the first staff arrived. Jules came in early, hair pulled back tight, uniform spotless. She offered a quiet morning and went straight to the sink without needing direction. Rami followed, slinging his apron over one shoulder and grabbing the prep list without being told. Leonard joined them in the kitchen. We've got an inspector coming in at 10, internal audit. Don't worry, it's for me, not you. Rami raised an eyebrow. What kind of inspector? The kind that doesn't care how clean your counters are. She'll be talking to staff. Rami nodded once and went back to cutting strawberries. Jules glanced over but didn't speak. Leonard didn't push. By 7:30, Olivia arrived and took over the counter. The morning rush started like a tide, slow, then suddenly everywhere. Leonard kept moving. He filled drink orders, restocked the pastry case, and helped Jules with portioning. When the mixer stalled mid-batch, he fixed it himself, wiping grease from his hands with a rag tucked in his back pocket. At 9:15, a woman in a gray blouse and work boots stepped inside. She carried a clipboard and nothing else. Leonard met her near the register. Mara Kenley, she said, offering a quick handshake. Internal oversight, you sent the request, he nodded. Take what you need, I've cleared the office in the back. Won't need it, I'll talk to staff out here. He stepped back and let her through. Over the next 45 minutes, Mara spoke to each employee separately, always in a low voice, always off to the side. Leonard didn't watch. He kept his focus on the customers and the clock. By 10:30, she was done. They stood near the back hallway, just out of earshot. Your instincts were right, she said, flipping her clipboard closed. It wasn't just Darren. Carla was filtering applicants. Most of the rejections came after she flagged them as not a fit. Leonard kept his expression unreadable, based on appearance, not in writing, but the timing matches. And I spoke to 2 current staff who said she'd comment on how new hires represented the brand. Her words. He exhaled slowly. Is this happening elsewhere? Possibly. This isn't the only store with a sudden drop in trial hires after ID photos. Leonard nodded once. We'll need a full review of every location. Mara didn't ask for permission. She just turned and walked out. At 1, Leonard called a staff meeting. He waited until the last customer left, then turned the sign on the door to closed for maintenance and joined the team near the front display. They stood in a loose semi-circle, Rami with arms folded, Olivia holding a dish towel, Jules standing near the espresso machine. No one sat. I owe you more than thanks, Leonard began. I owe you clarity. No one interrupted. I came here expecting to fix a morale problem. I found discrimination, retaliation, and a failure of leadership. That ends today. He looked at them each in turn. Carla won't be returning. An interim manager will arrive tomorrow, someone trained outside this region. Her name is Jillian. She's been briefed. She'll be listening more than talking. Olivia nodded slowly. Jules shifted her weight but didn't speak. Leonard continued. We'll be changing the trial process effective immediately. No more photo submissions. No more silent rejections. Every candidate gets a fair shot, and every rejection must be documented with objective reasons. Rami spoke up. What happens to people who already got pushed out? They'll be contacted directly. I've asked HR to offer interviews to each one starting this week. If they're still interested, they'll be fast-tracked. Jules looked up for the first time. Even if it's their first job, especially then, Leonard said, the first chance someone gets shouldn't depend on how they look. She blinked and nodded once. Leonard turned to the whole group. I know this place has been running on damage control. That ends now too. We're hiring 2 more people before the week's out. No more solo shifts. No more missed breaks. You'll be trained, supported, and paid for the time you invest. Olivia lowered the towel in her hands. What about the other stores? They're next, he said. This isn't just about here. No one clapped, and he didn't expect them to, but no one looked away either. He stepped back. I'll be back on Friday to follow up. Until then, Jillian will report directly to me. If anything slips, if anything feels wrong, you come to me. Direct line. No middle steps. Rami gave a small nod. Olivia crossed her arms, thoughtful but steady. Jules reached for a rag and started wiping down the counter without being asked. Leonard let the silence settle. Then he spoke again, softer. My father built this bakery on the idea that good food brings people together, but it doesn't mean anything if the people making it are afraid to speak. That's not a bakery. That's a machine. And we won't be that. No one said a word, but the shift in the room was clear, not relief. Not yet, but something closer to trust. Leonard stepped out into the afternoon light, the sun stretching long shadows down the sidewalk. He didn't head back to headquarters. He walked 2 blocks, sat at a bench, and opened his notebook. He wrote down one line. Leadership doesn't live in reports. It lives where the floor meets the shoes. Then he closed the book and pulled out his phone one by one. He called every regional store manager, not to scold, not to demand, to ask the same question he should have asked a year ago. How's your team doing? And when's the last time you asked them yourself? He didn't wait for silence to answer back. He stayed on the line until he heard something real, because the only way forward wasn't top-down. It was walking in the door, tying on an apron and earning back the trust that had been quietly slipping away, one shift at a time.